was a slight incorrect message there. I challenge the world picture by the school and the academia. That's why it started to be wrong. It's very difficult for media to correct something that was badly constructed from the beginning. That's my idea. Huh? I don't applaud. You can take your responsibility. Huh? Anyhow, my idea was I will start to talk about people. But first of all, I would like to ask you questions. And you've got an answering device on which you can answer A, B, or C. This is the first question. We are 7 billion people in the world. Where do they live? We've divided the world into America, Europe, Africa, and Asia. And we included Australia here in Asia. And we made Europe bigger by putting Turkey there also. But how are they distributed? Are the 7 billion distributed like this, A, or like this, B, or like this, C? Please answer. Journalists are faster to answer than academia. Professors are hopeless. They slowly, they sit and think and think and think. But you are quite fast. We have 350. Max, how many have you distributed? 600. Come on, it's just to press A, B, and C. Where do you think the billions are living? Huh? Okay. That is the first. We're still getting answers. Often we don't get this macro picture. I think I'm talking about a worldview that lies in between the reporting you do, which is more focused and which is more in shorter term, and the general teaching that also is sort of detailed. So let's now see what I have after this. 1, 2, 3. How many children are born per woman in the world now? When I started in university, there were still 5 children per woman in the world. And it had decreased very slowly like this. Which one of these lines is the correct one? One is the correct one, the other 2 I made up. Is it today 4.5 children per woman in the world? Is it 3.5 or is it 2.5 on average, the whole world? Please answer. It's really basic questions. Huh? Family-related basic questions. Okay. So let's go on for the next. Now, how many children are there in the world? Children here is up to the age 15, 0 to 15. When I was born, we were less than 1 billion children. Then it increased the number of children to the turn of the century, almost 2 billion. Now, one of these lines is the best estimate by the expert in the United Nations. The other 2 I made up. They are fantasy. Do the experts say the number of children will continue to grow and it will be about 4 billion here? No, they say the growth is slower, it will be around 3 billion. Or do they say, no, the number of children in the world have stopped growing, it will remain 2 billion by the end of this century? Please answer, A, B, or C. Education. What is the percent of adults in the world that are literate? That means that have some basic knowledge about reading and writing. 40, 60, or 80%? Please answer. Now, this is about gender issues. Men in the world, if you ask them, they report that they've been 8 years to school. 30-year-old men. Actually, it's 25 to 34, but let's say average 30 when they finished university, or if they had gone to university, which few do. 8 years. What do women in the same age group say? Do they say, I've been 3 years to school, I've been 5 years to school, or I've been 7 years to school? Please answer. The difference in years in school between men and women in the world. Men, I gave you 8. What are women? How long have they been? How many years have they been on school on average? Of course, some have been long in school, others have not been in school at all, but this is the mean number of years in school. Okay. Health. What is the life expectancy of the world population? 50, 60, or 70 years? Please answer. Okay. What percentage of the children in the world today get the basic vaccination, including the most important against measles? Is it, and they should get these vaccines when they are like before 2 years old, before 1 or 2 years old. Is it 20% to get these vaccines? Is it 50% or is it 80% of the children in the world today? Money. In the last 20 years, the proportion of people living in extreme poverty in the world. Extreme poverty means that technically below $1.25 exchange purchasing power per day, but I used to say barely having enough food for the family, you know. Has that percentage in the world almost doubled the last 20 years? Has it remained more or less the same, or has it almost halved? Really big difference between these alternatives. A, B, or C? Thank you for that. There we are. Now I'm going to change a little mode here on this presentation here. I'm going to do this here, right mouse button. I've been taught this by my young colleague here. So, normally 66-year-old men can't do this, so. It's quite exciting, isn't it, huh? There we are. Now, this was your first question. This was your first question. You answered like this. 15% of you said A, 50% here, 35% here. You favored this one. Now, we have done surveys of the Norwegian population. They answered this. Of the Swedish population, they answered this. It's cute with neighboring people, you know, simulate they are. No bad feelings here, you know. No bragging, no nothing. We are very, very similar. Now, the only problem is that this is the correct answer. Now, here's a problem, because you are better than the people you write for. So there's something wrong in the communication, you know, because most of you know this. It's interesting that half of the population in Sweden and Norway overestimate the number of people in Africa twice. They think the relation between Asia to Africa is like 2 to 3, when in fact it's 1 to 4. And it's general, I tested many professional groups. It's almost the only question where people think it is today as it will be in 35 years. They are 35 years ahead of their time. They think there are much more people in Africa than they really are. Now, so what can we learn about this? What can we learn about this? Well, this division of the world, it's very clear, you know, that the 7 billion people, almost on the billion, 1 billion in America, from Canada to Argentina, 1 in Europe, 1 in Africa, and 4 in Asia. We have to learn the PIN code, 1114. And It's interesting, this slide, when I lecture in the corporate sector, the big international companies, this is the one that the CEO likes most. They want this, copy this to my entire staff, they said. This is what we have to learn. And especially then he likes this one also. What's going to happen 1950? No more people here in Europe, almost shrinking. A little more retired people in South America here. 1 billion more in Asia. And then the population growth in Africa, in Asia will stop, at least the fast population growth. In Africa, yes, it will be 2 billion, as 58% of Sweden Norwegian population think it is already. And then, by the end of the century, when the fast population growth of the entire world most probably will be over. There may be slight growth continuing, or it may already have started to shrink the world population. That we don't know. But the estimate is that there will be about 2 billion more in Africa. Now, this gross change in demography is quite sure that it will happen more or less like this. But it's mentally very difficult to accept. If I divide this into 500 million there, 500 million there, 500 million in West Europe, the Old West, North America and West Europe will be less than 10% of the world population. 80% will be living in Asia and Africa. That will be the world. The Atlantic will be backwater. Sorry, Bergen. It will be a remote destination. And this is a huge change. When I went to school, there was still 1/3 of the world population in this West, and it will fall to less than 10%. This will be the sea of trade in the future. The best investment you can do is to buy a piece of the shore on the East African coast. Really sure. The Somali coast with the wonderful beaches of Somalia will be the Florida of the world. It's unstoppable. Yeah, it sounds funny, doesn't it? But Florida also had a lot of pirates. Key West was built to fight the pirates. Today, when we make films about the pirates, the rapes are not included. We make fancy films as if it was nice, We make the Old West history nice. All ugly things we sort of remove in the concept, And then we can't see that same thing is on its way. It's not certain, but it's quite probable that this will happen. Now, this is what you said on this one. Now, let's see here. Okay, 45% said 2.5, 41 and 10%. This is what the Swedes said, and this is what the Norwegians said. It's nice, isn't it? Brother and sister people, So similar. And here you were more similar to them, and the right answer is this one. So there is about half of you and half of the populations that overestimate the number of babies born per woman today. How did it happen? Well, it happened like this. It fell faster than ever before in the history of mankind. We're 2.5 today. And all experts agree that what we will see happening is this. We will reach about 2 children per woman in this century. And this happened before because Europe was first. But Europe didn't fall fast. It just started early. Then came the Americas with a baby boom after the Second World War, both in North and South. Then Asia came and they scared with population growth, but it fell very fast. And Africa, has it started? Yes, it has started. And we think this will happen. And of course, the average is downfall of Asia. The average is down here, 2.5. The fall of number of children per woman has fallen much faster than has been understood and known and communicated. Sorry, that was again, this is the average, the big average there in the middle. Now, what does that mean if we start to look at it at country levels? Where has it happened? Let me show you my beloved bubble graphs here. And I can take this one back to about 1963, about some 50 years ago here. And let me expand it here and explain. On this axis, number of babies per woman, 2, 4, 6. Large families, small families. The length of life, short life, long life. 1967, Western countries or industrialized countries, small family, long life. Developing world, big families, short lives. It was really divided by this. The color here shows Yellow Europe, green America, red, this is of course Japan, Asia, and this is Asia, and Africa is these blue ones down here. Africa was a little behind there, already in 67, very few in between, very, very few in between. And who were the in-betweens? Well, the in-betweens were Ireland, Hong Kong, Cuba, and Taiwan. So if you want to look if Cuba has been successful, you should compare to Taiwan. It was a brilliant rhetoric of Castro to nominate Cuba as a developing country. They were an in-between country. The child mortality in Havana in the 1920s were lower than Paris and Berlin. It's like this dichotomy. We decided these countries belong here, these countries belong here. And what we have missed is what have happened. I start the world, and here we go. Can you see that they got healthier, and here family planning in China brings they over here. Here comes all the Latin American countries. They don't care about the Pope. They use the condoms and the pills. And here comes India, here comes everyone. The African countries start to move. A completely different world. Average is 2.5. And we've missed it. We've missed it. It's 2.5 because we know that there are still countries like Afghanistan and like Congo. And that's right. There are still countries in which life is miserable. Poverty and civil war and oppression and crimes against human rights, all this you can find in some countries. But the majority is here. And is this then theoretical indicators? No, it's the bedroom. The most important room and most interesting, at least, room at home, the bedroom. What you have over here is patriarchal sex, no talking. What you have here is what the Americans call pillow talk. The young couple decide, we'll have 2 kids. We want to go to the beach. We want them to have a guitar. We want them to go to school. They should have a better life than we have. And 2 things are known, 2 things you have succeeded. You have rightly pointed out that there is selective abortion of female fetuses. Everyone knows that. And that there is a one-child policy in China. That's a complete success of media. However, the impact of that one-child policy has not been spoken so much about. 1.66 children per woman in China. How come? The big, mighty Communist Party tell people you shall have 1 child and they have 1.66. Conclusion? Communist Party is not so powerful in the bedroom. There are other powers and forces operating in the bedroom, which is much more powerful than the Communist Party. No. Now, the more interesting things, if you go here, you have Hong Kong. They have 1 child per woman. But they don't have a one-child policy. How come? Why can Hong Kong have 1 child per woman? And not only Hong Kong, South Korea has it, Taiwan has it, Japan has it, without any Communist Party. And I understood this when I lectured at the banking conference, an investment conference in Hong Kong. They told me, I sat next at the dinner, I ended up next to the most successful young banker in Hong Kong. And that banker told me about the financial changes in China, how salaries was coming up, how works were now outsourced to other countries in Asia. She was just 37 years old. She was absolutely brilliant banker. And I realized she has worked always, day and night. So I asked her at the dessert, a private question, don't you think about family, I said. Yes, she said, and looked out of the window. I think about children every day. It's the idea of a husband I can't stand. You fly to Japan, you land at Narita Airport. You know about the concept Narita divorce? Japan has the highest frequency of 1-month divorce in the whole world. The Narita divorce is after the honeymoon, on the carousel, the suitcase comes, the young woman grabs it and she walks away. That's Narita divorce. There's a film made, a feature film about it with that name in Japan. There's no gender equity. You can have social development, you can have democracy, you can have economic growth. Gender equity doesn't come automatically. It's a fight of its own, it seems. It's a fight of its own. Countries can pursue and achieve gender equity at quite modest level. They can do it without so much democracy. They can fail it with democracy. They can fail it with money. And they definitely don't have it. The young banker, if she marries, she should not divorce. She will be stigmatized if she divorces. She should take care of her parents-in-law. She should stand back for her husband's career. She just can't imagine having a husband. That's why we see this fall, this drop of fertility. It's a very important trend in the world. It is as strong as the delayed fall of fertility we have in the poorest countries in Africa. I will show you that. This is not known to the same extent as that one-child policy is known. And the selective abortions are there. They are important to talk about, but there are very few of the total number of abortions. We have 40 million abortions per year in the world, and only 2 million are sexually selective. So it's an important but relatively small aspect of abortion. So this big pattern we fail to see. And the consequences of this is in this question. What happens with the children? Now let's see how you answered. You are quite advanced. Although you vote like the chimpanzee. Huh? If I go to the zoo, I get the same amount here. But having reached that level, you are ahead of media in most countries, I can tell you. Because you don't have preconceived idea. At least you come up with a blank sort of mind here. The people think like this. Look, they were only here because the right answer is this. The number of children in the world have stopped growing. It's the biggest event in the history of mankind that was completely missed by media. Because it happened so slowly. Slowly. No, it never can't be you. If you move like this through the new studio, no one will mention you. No one will mention you. Too slow, not exciting. Slowly. I will try Swedish TV. I have the idea to try to walk through during the news. Where if you just move slowly, you can't see them. Big things happen slowly, but they change the world. No? Now, let's look at this. This is the number of births per year in the world. This year, we have reached peak birth. 139 million children are born today. We don't expect it to be more. It could be more. It's uncertain. It could be here, but as well it could be less. But the projection is that we will not have more children born in the world today. But this doesn't exist. The most common email I get from students in Sweden and across the world is, if you save the children that are dying, you destroy the environment and the planet. It's not a moral problem with that. It's just ignorance, deep, blunt ignorance. Because the child mortality is so relatively low today. So the countries that have the fastest population growth in the world, who are they? Take away the small countries, substantial countries. It's Afghanistan and Congo. They have the highest child mortality and the highest population growth. 5 children per woman, 1 die, 4 survive. They double in 1 generation. 5 per woman, 1 die. We don't have higher child mortality than this in the world. 20. And that's terrible. It's an ugly thing to say we don't have higher. It's high enough, 1 out of 5 dying, 200 out of 1,000. But we used to have 400 out of 1,000. We used to have an ugly period when death stopped population growth, But this is where we are today. And it's missed. I can't understand why it's missed. That is where we have Europe. 75 to 80 years, 1.6 children per woman. Due to Russia, shorter life, smaller family. They take down the average of Europe. This is where you have Africa. Okay, 5 and relatively short life expectancy. And many think that this is the developing world, this is the developed world. But let me show you where we have the Americas, North and South together. It's there. Brazil today have less children per woman than Sweden and Norway. Catholic Brazil. Because they have double morale, and that's twice as good as single morale, they tell me. I have worked a lot in Africa, doing field service in poor parts of Africa. Almost always lived together with nuns in convents. And I come to admire them so much. the way they've lived their life, how they have got out of a patriarchal society and be able to serve and work with people. And especially Nurse Linda in Congo. She had on her door like this, on her little health center, she had a big poster of the Pope on the outside. When she came in Monday morning, she opened it and it was a big poster about condoms. And then she said, it's so good because I put them so they can't see each other, she said. And when I am away and I cannot explain how we think about this, then they just see the Pope during the Sunday. Monday I can explain this for them. Because they need condoms, she said. Of course they need condoms. This happens, we have the idea that religions drop of fertility. We have the same number of children per woman in Muslim-dominated and in Christian-dominated countries in the world. There's no difference. The only difference is that the Buddhists and Hindus have less than the Christian and the Muslims. This is what we see in the world. And here is Asia, the 4 billion in Asia. They are there. You see, most of the world population is here, so the average is 2.5. And some little parts of Africa is there. Addis Ababa have less children per woman than Bergen, Oslo, and Stockholm. They have 1.6. They used to have 7 children per woman. Now instead they have 7 Dreamliners in Ethiopian Airlines. Things change, and we don't catch up as fast as we should. This is what will happen. The number of children will not increase in the world. The adults will increase. We have reached peak child. Now, we know this because we know and understand how population have changed. In the past, the 2 parents had 6 children, on average. Even if you go to the rainforest today, this is what you find, on average. Some have very many, some have few or no one. On average, the human, biologically, the human give birth on average to 6 children. The reason that population was not growing in the past, and the reason there are so few people in the rainforest, is not that they have a secret contraceptive in some flower which they eat at night. That's bullshit. The tragic fact is that children die in a tragic rate. People don't live in ecological balance in rainforest. They die in ecological balance in rainforest. But they have an amazing knowledge about nature. And their cultures and their human rights should be defended. But don't be naive and pathetic about it. I've done research for 20 years in the fringes of the rainforest across Africa. I never saw an illegal immigrant. We have Matthias Klum, the great photographer in Sweden, who takes photos of the rainforest. He never brings his children to work. Nice children, nice family. They never take his children to work because it's too dangerous. He brings an anesthesiologist, an intensive care doctor instead, to secure. It's dangerous in the rainforest. It was dangerous in the past. It was tragic. Human history has been tragic. What happened when Sweden and Norway filled Minnesota was not that we got more children. It was that more children survived. But still there were high death rates. This is what made 25% of Sweden and Norway's population leave for North America, and this is why the world population became 7 billion. And now we are quite close. It won't happen like this. Even in the Christmas speech 2 years ago, the Swedish king talked about the environment. A quite good speech, actually. We noted, people lifted their this time it was good, they said. But in the middle of that speech, he said, and we are only becoming more and more people in the world. Now we are 7 billion, and by 2050, we will be 3 times as many. And that past, you can imagine the scrutiny when the Swedish king speaks, how you have to scrutinize what he says before you let it out in media. And that was, but we don't do that. We let this pass. There's a laissez-faire about what is facts and what is not facts about population. And this is not happening. This is what will happen. We have almost reached the new balance, and we will level off. Now the question is, if the number of children are not increasing, why will we be 3 to 4 billion more? Are there coming adults from outer space? No, I have devised here very, very advanced new methods of explaining this, which we will present for the first time in Norway today. Imagine that this toilet paper roll is 1 billion people. 2 toilet paper rolls then make up the children of the world, up to the age 50. Then there are almost 2 billion from 15 to 30. 1 billion 30 to 45, 145 to 60, and this is my role. I'm inside here, 60 and older. We are there. This is the world population today. Why are 3 billion missing? And it's not because they've died. Some are missing because they've died. It's mainly because they were not born. There were much less people born in the world when I was born in 1948. So this is what happens, that the population pyramid increase until you get 2-child family and children stop growing. We have hit that already down here. So number of children will not increase. And let's assume that length of life will not increase. Will there then be more people? I'll show you. Is there anyone doing health journalism here? Anyone who knows what happened to old people? They die. They die. What happens to the rest of you? You grow older, 15 years older, and you get kids, same number of kids. The old die, the rest grow older, they get their children. The old die, the rest grow older, they get their children. Whew, by magic, I got 3 billion more without increasing the number of children, without increasing the length of life. Yeah, you look doubtful. If you doubt this and you have this at home, you can check tonight. That's the good thing with this, you know. I don't like this sort of research where people cannot check. Now, there is a secret here. People will live a little longer. Old people will be a little longer. The richest countries are obsessed by that because it costs pension funds. We haven't planned for that. And I desperately want to be this person up here. I can follow the statistics for 15 years more, you know, and see what happens. So more or less like this is what we will have the world. There's no way we can avoid becoming 3 billion more. 2.5 perhaps, 3.5 perhaps. This is inevitable. So when environmental activists, with whom I sympathize with their concern very much and what they want to achieve, when they say we have to stop population at 7 billion, it's horror for me. It's horror for me. It's Lebensraum. It's very, very bad. How can that pass in media? It's even journalists who write we couldn't be more people. What are you going to do with them? People don't realize that they are proposing to kill people. There's no way you can avoid this happening. They're already born. And if you want it to be less than 2 children per woman, you should start in Sweden. You should take away the child allowances, barnbidrag. You should take away the subsidies for daycare centers. If you do these 2 things, Sweden will not have 2 children per woman. We will drop to 1.4 directly from one budget year to the next. And this is not proposed. So I think this is very severe because this is not about, it's not about political views or ideologies. It's just blunt facts. It's blunt facts which are not known. Huh? So let me do this more in detail. Those rolls were 1 billion. Here instead, each little doll is 100 millions. It's the same here, 15, 30, 45 years, 60 years and older. Here is Europe. 200 million who are below 15. 200, 200, 200, 200. This is me up here. Huh? Or I'm one of those 100 millions. Boring, isn't it? Same all the way up. America, those, I promise you, 100 million more retired people in South America. It won't make most difference. It will be the same football with or without them. You know. It will not make so much difference. Look at Africa. Already today, we have as many below 15 in Africa as we have in the entire Europe and America together. From Vladivostok through Siberia, the entire Europe, Canada, and all the way down to Argentina, same number below 15 as in Africa. So if Africa, by magic, overnight get 2 children per woman, you saw that line dropping. If they drop like this overnight, they will still double their population. There's no way you can avoid. So it wasn't that bad voting 2 billion in Africa, because that is, at least that's where Africa is going to do. But most probably they will continue to increase for a while. Asia has stopped growing. You remember the Asian line was down at 2. They have stopped. But China will not get older, the population, because they will live longer. They already live quite long. They will get older because they will fill up this area. Look what will happen. Look what will happen. The old sadly die, the rest grow older, and luckily they get their children. The old die, the other ones grow up, and they get their children. Now we are in 2045. The old die, the rest grow up, and they get their children. The old die, the rest grow up, and they get their children. It's not so difficult. Not so complex. Africa will increase, Asia will decrease. Remember the banker. The banker is just in the front of all these women in Asia. They call it, the leaders in Asia call it Asian values. I call it patriarchal shit. It's really, it's what it is. We had the Vice Prime Minister of Singapore came with 14 experts to spend 1 week in Sweden in October last year. And those who are qualified, economists, demographers, sociologists, anthropologists, the best they had academically, and that's good in Singapore. And they came just to get an answer on one question. They asked us, tell us, how do you make children? And we were quite flattered, Swedes are not used to getting that. Oh, we know how to do it, And it ended up the youngest deputy in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, she raised her hand by the end of the first session and say, try gender equity, she said. It's not enough that you can have home aids from the Philippines. It's that deep idea that men and women should have the same chance, in relation to family life. That lacks. So that may change. So look here. The fill-up of adults is this. This is inevitable. This is up for question. If Africa very fast get out of poverty, all African women get access to contraceptive, because mind you, even if the world has gone down in fertility rate, there are still, like 25 to 50% of the women in Africa who want contraceptive who doesn't get it. They get, if I should be blunt, they get human rights seminars, but they don't get the stuff they need. They need the seminar, they need the support for their rights, but they also need the contraceptives in itself. And that's not their community, their governments, and the international community are not supporting it. And it's to me sort of embarrassing that it's the conservative Prime Minister of Britain together with a Catholic billionaire from the United States, Melinda Gates, that alerts us about this fact, and it's not Sweden and Norway who does it. Because we've gone beyond to other demands and rights now. The blunt provision of that. So this may be fewer. On the other hand, you can have gender equity in Asia. So if you're scared about population growth, the worst thing of all is gender equity in Asia. You have to pray every evening that women will be kept low in Asia and not have it as they want. I don't think you should think in human numbers as the problem for environment. We will get these 10 billions. That's not the problem. It's the consumption of the richest billion and the next 2 billion that is the problem. So there will be some who will live longer. What about education? This is the question you got here. This is how you answered. This is how the Swedes and Norwegians answered. Okay, you were quite representative like this. This is the right answer. Once again, you see, you know that, yes, there are places where very few adults, the majority of adults cannot read. There are few places. It's Yemen, it's Afghanistan, it's Burkina Faso, it's Mali, it's northern interior part of Mozambique. But most people of the world, of 5 in the world, 4 can read. It's almost like this, that 4 have gone out of the worst situation. Now let's look at this. What did you say here? When you see the results from Sweden and Norway, you immediately know which is the correct answer, don't you? It's I don't even have to tell you what is the correct answer. It's of course, it's this one. There's very little gender inequity in school in the world. If you listen, and if you really listen to what Malala says, when she's interviewed in the World Bank, and Kim, the president of the World Bank, asked her, why doesn't girls go to school? And she answered, That's because so many girls and boys live in so poor families that they have to work to earn a living for the family instead of going to school. And then she takes a deep breath and she says, but there are also still societies where there is cultural obstacles for girls going to school. She's clear and she's right. Out of 60 million children who are out of primary school, 45% are boys and 55% are girls. It's just 10% that is gender difference. Why don't we learn this? Does this mean that there's no gender inequality in the world? On the contrary. But today it has been moved from age 7 to age 13 to 14, when first menstruation comes, when they should start moving themselves out in their life. What is the most common cause of death between 15 to 19 years of age in girls? No, that's 20 to 25. Close, but not. Any other suggestion? 15 to 19 in the world, most common cause of death. It's suicide. That's enough to say that we have very far to go, because generally, men and young men commit more suicide. But in the world today, these girls now come out of school. They know how capable they are. They know that they even are better than the boys. They played around more. They focused more on schooling. And they have no choices. They are stopped. They are told to marry the neighbor's boy. They cannot go and take the employment they want. They have a terrible situation. This is clearly documented. By girls going to primary school doesn't solve the gender inequity. It, even in the first stage, worsen it. But it has to be like that. And it's not such a lot of demand of conservative, terrible men to let young girls go to school. That happens. So this is where we see today. And I can show you how this looks like if I go over to my bubbles. Time for bubbles again. And we shall see here. Bubbles are countries, size is population. Here, mean years of school for men, 25 to 34 years old, on this axis. This mean years in school for women in that age group. 1970. Now you can see countries down here. Look where India was. Men went 3 times more to school than women. Right, that's how it was. You can see even China, twice as long in school. And you can find countries here like Pakistan, 4 times more in school. But then also men was very slow. Let's mark where we had UK, United Kingdom up there. That's where United Kingdom was in 1970. And I will let the other countries shine there. Now I'll move the world forwards. Here we go. This is what has happened. And where United Kingdom was 1970, when I was there as a student, that's where China is today. And today, Brazil has more or less the same amount of years in school for men and girls. China has it, Countries like Philippines, women go longer to school than men, because that's how they get their jobs outside the Philippines. Then there are still GMN. There you are. Still exist. But what you miss are the billions in the middle. When you think that you miss this, you rightly know that there's still this miserable situation exists. But that's 1 out of 5. 4 out of 5 now has gender equity in school. And in health, the life expectancy. Very interesting. Oh, you're very representative of your people. This is the right answer. Life expectancy. And you answered this, although we had distributed the paper on your chair where you could see it. Or are you so honest you turned it back off until you answered the questions? You see, the mindset is so stubborn. It's so stubborn. We think, and of course this is right because there are countries with 50. There are countries with 46 in West Africa who have had war. And there are countries like 83. The average of the world is closer to Japan than to Congo. Did you hear? The average of the world is closer to Japan than to Congo. There is no longer developed and developing countries. Every one of you who write in your articles or talk in your media about developing world after this lecture is a failure for me. A complete, terrible failure, because there are not two groups to talk about. It's a continuous world where most are in the middle. And this shows very well. They are much healthier than they think. How many are vaccinated? Yeah, you know, a little more than people. This is what the people think. And for it's 83%. And we uploaded 1 week ago a party trick video with Bill Gates, and we tried to get it through. It's hopeless to get this through. And your country, let me pay respect to Norwegian aid. Let me pay respect, has been very instrumental, together with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, to instrumentally challenge money to vaccination, much better than Sweden. You have actually been leading on that. And it carries over in the new government in a very good way. So it's not about party politics in Norway. It's an identity of Norway doing this. But then you don't know it. Take pride of it, for God's sake. I can't understand this. And being professor of global health here, it's like a complete failure. I was a doctor in northern Mozambique, you know, in a very poor area in 1979, 80, 81, and we reached 85% of the kids with vaccination. They're trained nurses. It's very easy. You come to a village far away, you know, and talk about vaccine. Yes, children are dying in measles. You have some vaccine against it. Here's my child, vaccinated. And then they see that measles is gone. They don't die in it. And there's a rain. Next time you get the chicken free when you come to the village. It's the women, it's the communities, it's the local governments, it's the national governments, it's the aid money, it's the industry. The industry are now delivering very efficiently safe and low-cost vaccines. And we don't know about it. Complete failure of you and even more of us in academia and schools. Why don't we tell it? Why don't you put it first page after this? And then people want to debate about aid. Everyone who doesn't know this are completely disqualified to have any view about aid. Because it's the most effective way. You save a life of a child for $2,000. $1,000 to $2,000, you save the life of a child. This is effective. I get sort of emotional sometimes. Huh? Just because you fail. You will feel the same sometimes. Huh? So here is what you thought about poverty. Yeah? This is what the people thought. And this is true. It's halved. It's down from 40% to 20%. It's uncertain, the measurement. But the change is so big. So it's bigger than the uncertainty. We are on the way. We can eradicate extreme poverty from this world within the next 20 to 30 years. And it's now all that going on. I was wrong. I was wrong about more than 1 week ago. I saw that first little notice. Actually came on Twitter on the abduction of those secondary school girls in northern Nigeria. And I said, media won't pay attention. You are doing it. Thank you very much. That's where the future of the world is going to be determined, in northern Nigeria, in South Sudan, and in Central African Republic. Syria is a tragedy beyond understanding, but it's a tragedy. Huh? It's whether the poorest countries there in the center of Africa would collapse or whether they would form part of the modern world. That's enormously important. And you can see the strategy of US and everyone, China. They thanked the president of Nigeria thanked the government of China and US for coming to help. I really like that, because both the government in China and US know, together with Jonathan, that they must not win. Ignorance must not win. My dear colleague Asli Kulane, who is associate professor in global health at Karolinska Institute, she was trained in medicine in Somalia and now teaching at Karolinska Institute. And she said that this is the turning point. Now the Islamists are backing out. This was so terrible what they did. We can see it on the opinion in that group we still have in Sweden who get enthusiastic about this. If you say Boko Haram, books are bad, what is then weapons? So they have now generated, the female Muslims in Stockholm have generated, I don't remember now what is, arms are bad, that this is not the way to achieve it. This we have to go. And we don't know the success. We don't know the success. You know it, but here first you have to cover this gap. And then the rest of you have to come down here. Now, what is embarrassing, that it's mainly done by the Communist Party in China. And we don't like it, do we? Because they did it. I'll show you. I'll show you how they did it. I'll show you how they did it. Huh? This is income distribution. Only money now. $1 a day, $10 a day, $100 a day. 1976. This is China, this is United Kingdom. Almost no overlap. This is the nomenclature in the Communist Party in China. These are people in southern Glasgow in Scotland, the poorest in Britain. They lived on the same standard. Of course, these estimates are uncertain, but the differences are so big, so they are still useful. And what has happened is this. Mao Zedong dies, Deng Xiaoping said, let's go for the money, and they went for the money, and here they are today. The richest people in Britain have the same amount of people in China, all the way to Richard Branson. The people on middle income in Britain have 5 to 10 times more people in China, and those with low income in Britain have about 50 to 100 times more. But these people, that doesn't exist in Britain. That's the challenge for China. The new inequity within the China. And that's mainly geographical in China because they don't allow people to move freely. So it's not a nice thing in China. Of course, a huge problem, and you do report very well on this huge problem. But I mean, it's much better to have outdoor air pollution than to have indoor air pollution. The number of children dying because they had coal fires inside the houses in China in the winter, that has decreased like this, and the one having problem from outside and the traffic is up like this. That's how you do it. You move the air pollution from the home out in the street, and then you take it away. And these changes we have now 6 children per 1,000 dying in urban China, and that's the same as the average in the United States of America. It's an enormous progress in China. And we don't like that it can happen without democracy. We would like this to be with democracy. Unfortunately, I would say, you can make it without democracy to this level where they are now. Now there's a big challenge for them to continue, or within 10 to 20 years. Now, if I look at the entire world, it looks like this. Here is Asia now. This is Africa. This is America, and this is Europe. Income distribution 1972. Of course, this is East Europe, this is West Europe, and this is Scandinavia over there. Norway is there somewhere. And here, well, Norway is there, but some people in Norway are down here. I mean, Norway would have a distribution like this, and perhaps some people are all the way out there. Now, it was a camel world. It was developed and developing countries. It was a camel world, but that one has gone. Look what has happened. Population grew, and economy improved in the middle, and the camel died, and we live in a dromedary world. Of course, it's $10. This is where you get shoes. You can afford shoes. This is where you can afford a bicycle. This is where you can afford a fan. This is where you can afford a motorbike. This is where you can get the washing machine, if the woman decide, or the car if the man decide. And then you go on, and here you can fly on holiday. It's a gradual world, but most people live, the light bulb is here. Most people in the world live between the light bulb and the washing machine. That's the standard they have. That's the majority. Then, tragically, we have 1.5 billion, 1 billion who still live without light bulb, who still can't read the adults, who don't get their children vaccinated. But that's a minority today. And this is really the big difference. If I could show you the relation. This is my standard graph here with income down here, life expectancy here. The entire world was down here, 1800. United Kingdom, Netherlands, United States, the main slave traders were here in the front. They were richer than the others. And no country was healthier than 40 years in life expectancy. This is what happened. With industrial revolution and market economy, the old West grow richer and then slowly healthier and healthier. And Hansen discovered the lepra bacteria here in Bergen. I just told all my colleagues from the airport that is what we think in global health is so great with Bergen. Everyone gets so surprised that poverty was so deep in Norway. People were living so cramped that they have leprosy transmission going on here and could discover it. Not on colonial contacts, but on domestic leprosy. A great contribution. And then we could make people healthier. And those who were dominated in colonial time were still down here. And then what happened after the Second World War? Independence came. And look, can you see China there? It's what Mao Zedong called the Great Leap Forward. It was a leap backwards. Stupid planning economy of China. And then they said, never more that. And then they got up here and they got quite healthy. And they fly up here. And now they get richer. And here you have the middle. And you see the average life expectancy is 70. And we have not one single country on 40. Hooray! Public health beat the economy. The economy still have all these people at lower income than the richest country 200 years ago. But we manage with health, because health is closer to humans, you know. It's not only medicine, it's industrially produced soap, it's tapped water, it's knowledge about breastfeeding, and it's rights for women. That has made it possible to improve the health situation, much more than that. But most people are here in the middle today. And that's the new world. Here are the poorest. So let me then end not with figures, because you are journalists and you know that the photo is more effective than any graph I can produce. So let me open this up. How did I do this now? Here, and show. And I'll jump on to show you. This is what I want you to show. This is how I want to see the world. You have child mortality here. You have money down here. Low-income countries, lower middle-income countries, higher middle-income countries, high-income countries. Child mortality is already low here at $4,000. Why give aid to these countries? They can manage on their own. And look what happened here in the last crisis. Was this caused by Argentina or Thailand? No. The last crisis was caused by this man here, George W. Bush. And I've acquired this photo because I think it's so representative. It's from the meeting in the 15th of November, the G20 meeting that he gathered in Washington when he was called a lame duck. And this is to honor him. I will end this lecture by honoring George W. Bush. It's very rare. Swedish public health professor very rarely honor George W. Bush. But I will do it now, and it's serious. Of course, here, hospitality. Americans are great in hospitality. He put up all the continents here, but he overdid it slightly, you know. So, but who stands next to him? Of course, this was about some countries lending money to other countries. He had already asked Merkel, and she said open. And Brown said, don't even think about it, you know. And Sarkozy, he said Peugeot, you know. He couldn't, everyone was in crisis. No one of his old friends could help him. He needed new friends. And it's the new friends who stand next to him there on the photo. Who are they? Who were they who saved the American economy? It was a socialist, a communist, and two Muslims. And this is the new aid flow, and that's Turkey, Indonesia, Mexico. It's a great journalist challenge to find out why Spain ended up there. You know, no one has found out that yet. You can see the face of Sarkozy when he's standing over there and said, how could France be on this side of a communist and a Muslim, he said, you know. He doesn't like the positions, you know. But this is the new world. The upper middle income country lends money to the high income countries that collapse their economy. And he's nice. And what I really like with him, can you see that he sort of leans to the socialist Latino and rubs shoulder with him like this? Because these are democratic electors. Those are the dictators. Unfortunately, he can borrow money from there. This is a small aid flow, but the big aid flow are from the dictators to the democracy. It's the dictatorships that helps the democracies to keep their shaky financial system working. This is a dangerous situation to me. Now, one thing, Brazil lends every year $30 billion to America for more than 10 years. That's the size of US aid, the development aid from America, every year for more than 10 years. And that's the biggest aid in the world. It's about 1/3 to 1/4 of the entire development aid. Now the big question internally is, how come that Norway at the same time give 0.15 billion to Brazil? We have a suggestion which would cut transaction costs. It would be to send the money directly to Washington. And he could deduct accordingly. No, it's a joke. Why are we concerned about this? Because Norwegian aid on the whole is very good and is a standard for other countries. But it's being used for these upper middle income countries. We need a completely new relation in the world. We need a new relation in the world. We need to understand that Gapminder try to contribute to it. We are an independent foundation, away from market, away from government. And we took the name there from London Underground, and we upgrade your worldview, we said. And remember, Bush did it, all will do it. Thank you very much.